Ever felt like the black sheep of the family? Here's how I turned the tables when they left me out in the cold. I was slouched on my worn-out sofa, the fabric threadbare and sagging under my weight, flipping through the pages of a crumpled sports magazine. The late October chill had already begun to seep into my cramped apartment, the faint hum of my struggling electric heater barely cutting through the cold. Outside, the first snowflakes of the season were beginning to dance in the dim light of the street lamps. The quiet was suddenly broken by the jarring ring of my phone, slicing through the silence like a knife. I glanced at the caller ID, expecting another bill collector or perhaps a friend offering to meet for coffee. Instead, it was Uncle Joe. I pressed the speaker button, bracing myself for his usual gruff remarks about the family's latest drama or some minor inconvenience at home. Maybe Aunt Linda had another baking disaster, or the garage door was stuck again. But this time, his words hit me like a cold wave crashing against a frozen shore. "Mark, you're not welcome at the family reunion this year," he said, his voice as casual as if he was discussing the weather. The magazine slipped from my grasp, pages fluttering to the floor like autumn leaves. "What?" I asked, my voice rough, dragging out like a rusty hinge. Uncle Joe let out a long, exasperated sigh, the kind he used to sidestep arguments. "Emily's been feeling tense lately, you know how she is? She doesn't want any stress, and neither do we. It's just easier if you sit this one out." I swung my legs off the couch, my boots hitting the scratched wooden floor with a hollow thump. My gaze locked onto the coffee table, its chipped edge catching the dim glow of a flickering secondhand lamp. "Sit this one out," I repeated, the words settling in my lungs like ash. "You're telling me I'm being excluded from our family's reunion because Emily is feeling overwhelmed?" His tone remained steady, cold, and final. "Don't blow this out of proportion, Mark. It's just one day. You'll be fine." A sharp heat twisted up my spine, my fingers gripping the rough wood of the table. "One day," I echoed, my voice sharpening like a blade against stone. "And what about the $5,000 I've been spending to keep your house warm all year? That means nothing too, does it?" Silence stretched between us, the phone line crackling faintly before he finally muttered, "Let's not make this about that. You offered to help." I let out a harsh, jagged laugh that slashed through the peeling walls, slicing the silence. "Offered?" I stood up, the floor creaking beneath me. "I've been covering your heating bill for 2 years. $5,000 just this year because you and Aunt Linda couldn't handle the cost after Emily's disaster drained you dry." "But sure, I begged to do it," he grunted, irritation lacing his voice. "We appreciate it, Mark, but this isn't about money. It's about family. Emily needs this right now. She's in a fragile state," he said, his voice softening slightly. I walked to the window, watching the first flakes of snow scatter against the glass, faint under the glow of streetlights blurring through the evening haze. "Fragile," I murmured, letting the words sit cold and heavy like the frost outside. "Emily always needs something, and I'm always the one paying the price. Not this time. Enjoy your drama-free reunion, Uncle Joe." I jabbed at the screen, ending the call, then tossed my phone onto the couch, its display as dark as my breath fogging in the dim light. The call with Uncle Joe left me with a bitter taste in my mouth, like the stale coffee I had forgotten to finish. I sank back into the couch, the springs protesting under my weight. My mind raced, replaying his words, feeling the sting of exclusion. Emily, always the golden child, her life a series of missteps cushioned by our family's support. 2 years ago, she had embarked on her latest venture, an online boutique she swore would be her ticket to success. She had drained the family savings, $20,000 gone in a flash, and all she had to show for it were boxes of unsold inventory rotting in a damp storage unit. Aunt Linda cried into her tea while Uncle Joe just shrugged, saying, "She'll recover." I hadn't argued. Instead, I had stepped up, taken over their heating expenses because winters here were merciless, and they couldn't afford fuel without me. $400 a month, $5,000 a year, wired straight from my warehouse paychecks while Emily posted pictures of rooftop drinks and designer coats she hadn't earned. I had let it slide because family was family, until now. Until Uncle Joe told me I wasn't welcome at the family reunion. The one event where we all showed up no matter what. The one day where we pretended everything was fine, even when it wasn't. I reached for my laptop on the messy shelf, sinking back into the couch as its worn frame groaned beneath me. Logging into the utility account I had set up for them, My name was on it. I'd been the one calling the oil company, scheduling deliveries, making payments because Uncle Joe couldn't figure out the online system, and Aunt Linda had simply smiled and said, "You're just so good at this, Mark." There it stood, 5,000 drained away this year. Each penny carved from my extra hours, my aching joints, my pre-dawn shifts, spent laboring in the warehouse's bitter chill. I pressed cancel service, my touch as unwavering as the thickening snowfall outside, a silent guarantee of the freezing days ahead. They'd figure it out, call the provider, scramble to fix it, but not before their home turned into an ice block. A notification appeared on the screen. Service discontinued effective November 1st, 3 weeks before the reunion. I snapped the laptop shut, a grim grin tugging at the corners of my mouth. Let's see just how fragile Emily feels when the warmth disappears. The days that followed were marked by a strange, heavy silence. I went about my routine, the warehouse shifts, the long bus rides home, the cold dinners eaten alone. But there was a new weight to my steps, a purpose in my movements. I had asserted myself, and it felt right, even if the cost was yet to be fully realized. I couldn't shake the memory of Emily's last venture, her boutique, the boxes of unsold goods, the tearful calls from Aunt Linda, Uncle Joe's forced optimism. They had all rallied around her, as always, ignoring my quiet contributions, my sacrifices. I had been the silent backbone, the one who kept things running, who made sure they had heat in the winter, food on the table when the money was tight. And now I was the one they deemed a source of stress, the one not welcome. My phone buzzed. A message from Aunt Linda. "Mark, why aren't you answering our calls? Is everything okay?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button, but I didn't respond. I couldn't. Not yet. The silence was broken by the first real cold snap of the season. The temperature plummeted, the wind howling like a pack of wolves outside my window. I wrapped my jacket tighter, the heater struggling to keep up with the chill. My thoughts turned to Uncle Joe and Aunt Linda, to their drafty old house. How long would it take them to realize the heat was gone? I checked my phone again, another message from Aunt Linda, this time with a note of urgency. "Mark, please call us. The house is freezing and we don't know what to do." I felt a twinge of guilt, but it was quickly overshadowed by the memory of Uncle Joe's casual dismissal of my presence at the reunion. A few days later, I received a call from Emily. Her voice was sharp, tinged with panic. "Mark, what have you done? The heat's gone and Uncle Joe says you canceled the service. How could you do this to us?" I took a deep breath, the cold air stinging my lungs. "I didn't do this to you, Emily. I did it for me. You've been a drain on this family for too long, and now they've decided I'm the one who needs to go. So I'm taking back what's mine." There was a pause, the line crackling with tension. "You're being selfish," she snapped. "Selfish?" I laughed, the sound harsh and cold. "I've been anything but selfish, Emily. I've been the one keeping this family afloat while you've been burning through our savings like it's nothing. Maybe it's time you learn what it's like to fend for yourself." The call ended abruptly, her frustration palpable even through the silence. I leaned back, the couch creaking under my weight. The days stretched on, each one colder than the last, and with every passing hour, the reality of my decisions settled in. The family was scrambling, their messages growing more desperate, but I remained silent, my resolve hardening like the ice outside. I knew they would eventually figure it out, call the oil company, find a way to heat the house. But the point had been made. I was no longer the silent supporter, the one they could take for granted. I was Mark, the one who had stood up for himself, who had reclaimed his dignity. And as the first snowstorm of the season buried the world in white, I felt a strange sense of peace, knowing that for once I was the one in control. The day of the family reunion arrived, the air thick with the promise of snow. I had no intention of attending, but the silence from Uncle Joe and Aunt Linda had stretched into a void that gnawed at me. I decided to go, not to reconcile, but to confront, to see the consequences of my actions face to face. The drive to their house was tense, the roads slick with ice, the world outside the car window a blur of white. I parked a block away, my boots crunching through the fresh snow as I walked up to their house. The warmth from inside seeped through the cracks of the door, a stark contrast to the cold I had left them in. I knocked, the sound echoing in the quiet street. Aunt Linda opened the door, her face a mix of relief and confusion. "Mark, you came," she said, her voice a whisper as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile peace. "I did," I replied, stepping inside, the warmth hitting me like a wave. The house was filled with the chatter of family members, the clink of glasses, the aroma of holiday food. It was as if nothing had changed, as if my absence was just another minor inconvenience. Uncle Joe approached, his expression unreadable. "You've made your point, Mark. We've managed to get the heat back on, but it was a cold few days." I looked around, the familiar faces, the laughter, the sense of belonging I had always felt here, now tinged with a bitterness. "I didn't come to apologize," I said, my voice steady. "I came to understand why I was excluded. Why, after everything, I'm the one who's not welcome." Emily appeared, her eyes narrowing as she saw me. "You think you're the victim here? You left us in the cold, Mark. You could have cost Aunt Linda her health." I shook my head, frustration boiling over. "And what about my health, Emily? What about the toll your failures have taken on me? I've been the one paying the price for your mistakes, for your inability to take responsibility." The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Uncle Joe stepped forward, his voice low. "Mark, this isn't about money or heat. It's about family, about supporting each other." "Supporting each other?" I echoed, my voice rising. "I've been the only one supporting anyone. I've been the backbone while everyone else pretended everything was fine. Emily, you've drained this family draw on, and I'm the one who's been picking up the pieces. But when I need support, when I need to be part of this family, I'm told to sit out. Why?" The question hung there, a challenge, a demand for an answer. Emily's face flushed, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I thought the boutique would work. I thought I could make something of myself." "And what about me?" I pressed, my eyes locking with hers. "What about my dreams, my needs? I've been the one sacrificing. And for what? To be told I'm not welcome at a family reunion because you're fragile?" Aunt Linda stepped between us, her hands raised. "Enough, both of you. This isn't how family should be. Mark, we appreciate what you've done, but Emily needs support too. We all do." I looked at her, the woman who had always been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over the rough edges. "Support, Aunt Linda. I've given everything, and it's never enough. I'm done being the silent supporter. I'm done being taken for granted." The room was silent, the tension palpable. I turned to leave, but Uncle Joe's voice stopped me. "Mark, wait. Maybe we've been wrong. Maybe we've taken your help for granted, but you're part of this family and we need you." I paused, my hand on the doorknob, the cold air from outside slipping in, mingling with the warmth of the house. "I'll think about it," I said, my voice softening. "But things need to change. I can't keep being the one who sacrifices everything." As I stepped out into the cold, the door closing behind me, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, relief, a sense of loss, but also a glimmer of hope. Maybe this confrontation, this breaking of silence, could lead to something better, something more balanced. Maybe, just maybe, this family could truly support each other, not just rely on one person's sacrifices. The cold air bit into my skin as I walked back to my car, the snow crunching under my boots. The confrontation had left me drained, but it also strangely liberated. For the first time in years, I had spoken my truth, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I sat in my car, the engine humming quietly as I stared at the house, the lights glowing warmly against the backdrop of the snowy night. I didn't start the engine, not yet, as my mind replayed the scene inside. Uncle Joe's acknowledgement, Aunt Linda's plea for peace, and Emily's fragile defiance. It was a start, a crack in the facade of our family dynamics that had been too long ignored. I drove home, the road slick but manageable, my thoughts a whirlwind of what had been said and what needed to be done. The next day, I called Uncle Joe. His voice was cautious when he answered. "Mark, I'm glad you called," he said, his tone a mix of relief and apprehension. "I've been thinking," I started, my voice steady. "Maybe we can find a way forward, but it has to be different this time." "We agree," he replied. We've been talking, Mark. We want to make things right. We arranged to meet at a local diner, a neutral ground where we could talk without the distractions of family gatherings. The next evening, I found my idea of sitting across from Uncle Joe and Aunt Linda, the table between us cluttered with coffee cups and untouched pastries. I've been selfish, Uncle Joe began, his voice rough with emotion. We've all been. We've leaned on you too much, and we've let Emily's mistakes slide without addressing them. Aunt Linda nodded, her eyes glistening. We've been so caught up in trying to keep the peace, we've forgotten that peace comes from fairness, from respect. I listened, my defenses slowly lowering. I appreciate that, I said, but words are easy. What changes? Emily joined us, her presence a surprise, but a necessary one. She looked different, more subdued, her usual confidence replaced by a quiet determination. I've been thinking too, she said, her voice soft. I've caused a lot of trouble, and I'm sorry. I want to make amends. The conversation flowed, not easily, but with a sincerity that had been missing for too long. We agreed on a plan, a new way of operating as a family. Financial responsibility. Emily would start paying back the money she had borrowed, not all at once, but in manageable installments. She had found a real one, not another venture, and was committed to making amends. Support. Instead of one person shouldering the burden, we would share responsibilities. If someone needed help, we would all contribute, not just me. Communication. We would have monthly family meetings, not just for celebrations, but to discuss issues, to ensure everyone felt heard and valued. Forgiveness. We agreed to forgive past mistakes, to move forward with a clean slate, understanding that everyone makes errors, but growth comes from learning from them. The diner's warmth, the aroma of coffee, and the quiet hum of conversation around us created a bubble of hope. As we left, I felt a sense of unity that had been absent for so long. We weren't perfect, but we were trying, and that was a start. The following weeks were marked by small changes. Emily began paying back the money, not just in cash, but in actions. She helped Aunt Linda with the house, took over some of her chores, and even started a small savings account for future emergencies. Uncle Joe took on more of the financial responsibilities, ensuring the bills were paid on time, and Aunt Linda organized our first family meeting where we talked openly about our needs and concerns. At the next family reunion, I was there, not as the silent supporter, but as an equal part of the family. The atmosphere was different, lighter, filled with genuine laughter and shared responsibilities. Emily had brought her homemade cookies, a small gesture, but a significant one. As I looked around, I realized that the confrontation, the cold days, the hard conversations had all been necessary. They had led us to this point of reconciliation, to a new understanding of what family truly meant. We were not just bound by blood, but by the choices we made to support each other, to grow together, and to heal. The snow outside was still falling, but inside there was warmth, not just from the fireplace, but from the renewed bonds of family. Months passed, and the changes within our family solidified into a new normal. Emily's job at the local bookstore became a source of pride for her, and she was slowly but surely paying back what she owed. Her contributions were no longer just financial. She brought a new sense of responsibility and maturity to our family gatherings. I found myself less burdened, not just by the financial weight, but by the emotional toll of being the sole pillar. The monthly meetings became a platform for open dialogue, where everyone's voice was heard and decisions were made together. Uncle Joe took on a more active role in managing the family's finances, ensuring that no one was left in the lurch again. One chilly spring evening, as the snow had long melted away, we gathered at Aunt Linda and Uncle Joe's house for another family reunion. This time the air was different, filled with a lightness that had been absent for years. The house was warm, the smells of homemade food wafting through the air, and the laughter was genuine, not forced. Emily approached me, a plate of cookies in hand. I made these, she said, a shy smile on her face. I thought you might like them. I took one, the warmth of the cookie seeping into my hand. They're good, I said, meaning it. You've come a long way, Em. She nodded, her eyes meeting mine with a sincerity that was new. I have, and I owe a lot of that to you, Mark. You made me see what I was doing, how I was affecting everyone. I'm sorry for all of it. I smiled, the weight of the past lifting further. We all make mistakes. It's how we learn from them that matters. The evening progressed with games, stories, and shared moments that felt like the family I had always known, but better. Aunt Linda, ever the peacemaker, had organized a small surprise. She gathered us all in the living room where she unveiled a new family portrait. It wasn't just a picture, it was a symbol of our commitment to each other. "Look at us," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "This isn't just a photo, it's a promise that we'll support each other, that we'll grow together, and that we'll never let one person carry the burden alone again." We all stood together for the photo, arms around each other, smiles genuine. The photographer captured the moment, a snapshot of our new beginning. As the flash went off, I felt a surge of hope, not just for myself, but for all of us. Later, as the night wound down, Uncle Joe pulled me aside. "You know, Mark, you've changed this family. You've made us better." I looked at him, the man who had once told me I wasn't welcome, now offering gratitude. "We did it together," I replied. "It's not about one person. It's about all of us." He nodded, clapping me on the shoulder. "You're right, and we'll keep doing it together." As I drove home that night, the stars shining brightly above, I felt a profound sense of peace. The road ahead was uncertain, as all roads are, but for the first time in a long while, I wasn't facing it alone. My family, with all its imperfections, was beside me, ready to support and be supported. It was a new beginning, one built on understanding, forgiveness, and the shared journey of growth. And in that moment, under the vast starry sky, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. The family reunion had ended, the house quieting down as everyone returned to their respective lives. I sat in my living room, the new family portrait framed on the wall, a constant reminder of our journey. The warmth of the evening lingered, but my mind was on the lessons we had all learned. The silence had been our downfall. For years, we had avoided difficult conversations, hoping problems would resolve themselves, but they didn't. The confrontation had been painful, but it opened the floodgates for honest dialogue. We learned that speaking up, even when it's hard, is the only way to truly understand each other. I had been carrying the burden alone, thinking it was my duty, but family isn't about one person sacrificing everything. It's about sharing the load. Emily's mistakes, Aunt Linda's health, the financial strains, these were not just my problems to solve. We all had a part to play, and acknowledging that shared responsibility brought us closer together. Holding on to grudges had only festered wounds. Forgiving Emily wasn't about excusing her actions, but about moving forward. We all needed forgiveness, not just to heal our relationships, but to heal ourselves. It wasn't about forgetting the past, but learning from it, ensuring that the mistakes of yesterday didn't define our tomorrow. The changes within our family were not a one-time event, but a continuous process. Emily's job, Uncle Joe's newfound financial diligence, Aunt Linda's efforts to keep the peace through open communication, these were steps in our ongoing journey of growth. We realized that families evolve, and with that evolution comes the need to adapt, to grow together, not apart. The confrontation, the cold days, the hard conversations, they had all been necessary to bring us to this point of unity. We were stronger together, not just in facing external challenges, but in supporting each other's personal growth. The family portrait wasn't just a picture, it was a testament to our collective strength, a visual reminder that we were better when united. As I reflected on these lessons, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the pain that led to understanding, for the mistakes that taught us how to do better, and for the love that bound us together. The journey had been tough, but it had been worth it. We had learned, we had grown, and most importantly, we had found our way back to each other. The lessons weren't just for our family. They were universal truths about human connection, about the power of communication, forgiveness, and shared responsibility. And as I looked at the stars outside, I knew that these lessons would guide us, not just through the next family reunion, but through all the days ahead.